When my boy Devin chose to pack up and head to the sprawling estate owned by his wealthy mother-in-law, Vivian Sterling, his spouse, Candace, Candy as she liked to go by, dashed along behind him without a second thought, abandoning me in this place she'd always made no secret of loathing. I can still hear her parting shot as she hopped into the fancy foreign luxury car Vivian dispatched to fetch them. "Rot in that run-down shack, you faded has-been." She bellowed it for the world to hear, drawing the neighbors out to gawk. Devin stayed silent, just tossed the bags in and peeled out, never glancing my way. I remained frozen on the porch steps, eyes fixed as they raced toward the lavish world of opulent properties and hired help they'd always craved. For 3 full months, there wasn't a phone ring, not a message, like I'd vanished from their lives entirely. Then, on a Thursday afternoon, they showed up out of nowhere. They pulled in via a shabby rideshare, hauling those identical bags they'd lugged off with high hopes, but now their faces screamed utter failure. As I swung the door open and caught their desperate gazes begging for entry, I welcomed them in a manner that shocked even Tony, the cabbie who dropped them off. See? What they couldn't grasp was that those 3-month solo hadn't broken me. They'd reshaped me into a whole new person. To grasp how we reached that point, though, I need to rewind to the start. I've got to share what my days looked like before everything crumbled. Before Candace barreled into our world like a storm of greed and venom. I'm a Lelenar, and at 64, this is my story. This humble 2-level dwelling in a blue-collar neighborhood on Detroit's north side. It's all I've got. I snagged it 3 decades back using the payout from my husband's life insurance. He perished in a building site mishap when Devin was just 8. One ordinary morning, he kissed us goodbye for the job and never returned. He left me to handle a young child, some bills, and that check, which I poured into the one sure thing for security, a home of our own. For 25 years, I clocked in as an office admin at a bookkeeping firm. The pay wasn't flashy, but it sufficed. I brought up Devin on my own. I clothed him, nourished him, covered his education, his gear, his aspirations. He wanted for nothing, save perhaps a dad. Yet I aimed to fill both shoes. I hustled relentlessly, taking extra hours when it counted. I pinched every dime so he could chase higher education. And he did. He buckled down, earned his engineering degree, and scored a solid gig. I swelled with pride. I figured my endless efforts had truly borne fruit. Then along came Candace. Devin crossed paths with her at a work summit 4 years prior. She handled PR gigs, always polished to perfection, carrying that haughty vibe that set my teeth on edge right away. When he brought her around for intros, I grinned and pulled her into a warm embrace, same as with anyone. But she offered the limpest handshake, like contact with me might taint her. That should have been my red flag. I ought to have clocked the way her eyes raked over me, judging my plain outfit, my scuffed footwear, and our unpretentious setup. 6 months on, they tied the knot. It was a modest affair since my funds wouldn't stretch for extravagance, and Devin wouldn't let me borrow trouble. Candace sulked through the entire event. Her mom, Vivian, skipped it altogether, dispatching a pricey present with a chilly message about a Euro business jaunt. I prepared the spread myself. I whipped up my signature mac and cheese, collard greens, and crispy fried chicken, the dishes I mastered best. Candace poked at it scarcely. I caught her whispering to a relative, "It's like bargain fast food." Post-ceremony, Devin and Candace crashed with me. Just for now, they promised, until they'd stashed enough cash for their spot. I was thrilled. The place buzzed with life once more. I spruced the largest upstairs bedroom, the one overlooking our tiny back patch of greenery. Fresh linens, crisp drapes. I set it all up. I figured we'd build a real family bond. What a fool I was. Right from night one, Candace launched her gripes. The air reeked of age. The paint peeled on the walls. The john was cramped. The sofa setup screamed salvage from the trash. Daily, she unearthed fresh flaws. Initially, Devon would chuckle awkwardly in her defense, claiming she was accustomed to finer things and I needed to cut her slack. And I tried. I bit back my retorts and heartache, kept preparing meals, tidying up, aiming to ease their stay. Time dragged, and it soured further. Candace ditched my cooking. She called it oily, stodgy, plebeian. She'd summon deliveries from upscale spots, scattering the discarded boxes for me to clear. She'd host her pals and murmur regrets over the basic digs they endured short-term. Devon started withdrawing more and more. He'd drag himself in from the office well after dark and barricade himself inside their bedroom with her. I'd catch snippets of their quarrels echoing through the walls. Candace's sobs would fill the air as she wailed about how unbearable this existence had become, insisting her mom was spot on and that she merited something superior. Then Vivian began dropping by our place. Dropping by doesn't quite capture it, more like conducting a thorough inspection. She'd pull up in her fancy imported ride, complete with a chauffeur, decked out like she was headed to some high society event. She'd sweep into my home, eyeing every corner with thinly veiled disdain. Perching on the sofa's edge like she might contract some lowly affliction from it, she'd launch into her lectures. Lord, could she ever go on? She'd inform Devon that he possessed real promise, that he'd carved out a solid path despite starting from nothing, and that the proper networks could propel him even higher. Then her gaze would shift to me, accompanied by that icy grin that never touched her eyes. "Eleanor," she'd purr, "it's truly commendable how you've scraped by with next to nothing. Not all of us get the privilege of entering the world with advantages." I'd grip my hands tight beneath the table and force a grin in return. I kept up the smiles for Devon's sake, unwilling to stir up drama, convinced that patience and gentleness would eventually show Candace and her mother that my only aim was my son's well-being. What a naive mistake. Gentleness falls flat against folks like them. They mistake it for frailty and pounce on it the way predators zero in on fresh wounds. Things shifted dramatically. One Friday evening, Vivian showed up for supper. I'd fussed over every detail. The place sparkled from my scrubbing. Fresh blooms adorned the dining table. Candace had given me the silent treatment all week. Yet that evening, she appeared unusually lively. Over the meal, Vivian droned on about her sprawling property, her exotic getaways, and the doors she could open for Devon if he positioned himself wisely. And then came the bombshell. "Devon, dear boy, why not relocate to my place? There's a whole unused section of the manor, 3 sleeping quarters, a pair of baths, a secluded terrace. Candace would thrive there, and you'd concentrate on advancing without." She trailed off, fixing her stare right on me, devoid of even feigned sympathy. The hush that ensued rang in my ears. Devon stared down at his food. Candace's face glowed with eager anticipation, and my chest cracked open in agony. Still, I managed a serene expression. "It's up to Devon to choose what's right for him," I murmured, though turmoil roared within. And choose he did. Naturally, he did. 7 days later, they gathered their belongings. Those intervening days dragged like endless torment. Devon exchanged hardly a word with me. If I nudged for dialogue, he'd avert his gaze and mutter excuses about his packed schedule. Candace, meanwhile, glowed with delight. She flitted through the rooms like she no longer claimed them, as though each moment lingered here demeaned her upgraded status. I overheard her gushing to pals on the line about the grand estate, the lush grounds, the warm indoor swimming area. She acted like I'd vanished from her world. It was as if the prior 2 years had dissolved into oblivion. I made one final bid to connect with Devon, just 2 evenings shy of departure. I spotted him solo in the kitchen, pouring himself water. I edged closer, gentle as if nearing a skittish creature. "Son, are you certain about this?" I whispered. "This will forever be your home." He slammed the glass onto the counter with undue force. "Mom, I'm grown now. I have to forge my path. Candace isn't content here. What about you?" No reply. He simply strode out, abandoning me amid my unanswered plea. That marked our final genuine exchange before his exit. Come the relocation day, a modest leased van pulled up. Their possessions were scant. Much of the furnishings belonged to me, yet Candace insisted on claiming every present I'd bestowed, every snapshot featuring just the pair of them, like she aimed to wipe away all remnants of their stint in my space. I pitched in with the packing. Devin dodged my gaze. Candace oversaw it all, wearing that victorious smirk that twisted my gut. Once loaded, Vivian rolled in via her opulent vehicle. She stayed put inside. A double honk summoned them, akin to beckoning pets. Candace dashed toward it. Devin hauled the final bags and at last met my eyes. For an instant, mere seconds, I glimpsed remorse in his look, hesitation. But Candace's summons from within shattered it. "Stay well, Mom." He rushed out before pivoting away. "Devin, hold on," I urged, yet he was already nearing the auto. Candace lowered the pane, her features twisted in that blend of scorn and triumph I'd come to despise. And out it poured, those venomous barbs seared into my core like branding flames. Rot away in that rundown shack, you faded relic. We're off to real living, not scurrying like vermin in this grimy pit. The neighbors emerged. Mrs. Carol Jenkins from the place right next door, Mr. Frank Powell from over the road. The whole block knew. They all witnessed my embarrassment. Devin climbed into the vehicle without a single word, without standing up for me, without so much as glancing back. Vivian fired up the motor and off they went. Just like that. I remained rooted to the sidewalk, surrounded by neighbors gazing at me with compassion, as the tears at last began streaming down my face. Mrs. Jenkins approached and wrapped me in an embrace. "Oh, Eleanor, that lady is beyond pardon, and your boy ought to feel shame." Yet I craved no solace. I rejected the sympathy. I retreated indoors and shut the door behind me. The home felt eerily quiet. For the initial time in ages, I found myself utterly solitary. I sank onto the couch, that worn-out piece Candace had mocked endlessly. And I wept. I sobbed for hours on end. I mourned my son, who had picked opulence over his mom. I grieved the countless years I'd poured into nurturing him, forgoing so much just for him to ditch me in this manner. I lamented the open shame. I bawled over it all. Time dragged on, days blending into weeks. Initially, I kept glancing at my phone, hoping for a ring, a message, anything at all. But silence persisted. Devin never reached out. Not even once. It was like I'd vanished from his world. When I stepped outside, the neighbors eyed me with sympathy. A few dropped off meals, treating me as if I were grieving. And in a way, I was. I was grieving the child I'd lost. Not to the grave, but to something crueler, greed and disregard. One evening, as I lay restless in bed, sleep evading me, I caught sounds from the yard. I glanced through the curtains and spotted a bunch of teenagers tagging my exterior wall with spray cans. Come morning, I saw what they'd scrawled, "The Deserted Ladies' Home." Word had circulated through the community, likely via some chatty acquaintance of a nosy resident. Suddenly, I became the local sideshow, the sorry figure whose kid had traded her in for greener pastures. I scrubbed the graffiti off by myself. It demanded 3 hours and a pair of sudsy buckets. Mrs. Jenkins offered assistance, but I waved her off. I had to handle it solo. With each wipe, a shift stirred deep within. The sorrow morphed into something else, tougher, more resilient. That evening, after a full month, the tears didn't flow. I settled in the kitchen with a mug of joe and surveyed the space. I really examined it. Candace had nailed one point. The property required fixes. The paint had dulled. The furnishings were dated. The garden lay in disarray. Not from poverty or despair like she'd sneered, but from channeling all my funds and time into Devin's well-being. I'd neglected my own upkeep. I'd overlooked tending to my surroundings. I grabbed a notepad and jotted down ideas. fresh coats for the surfaces, mending the dripping sink in the bath, swapping out the drapes, revitalizing the yard. Each flaw Candace had pointed out I'd address. Not to spite her, not to show off, but for my sake. This was my dwelling, my sanctuary, and I merited a lovely environment. The following morning, I dipped into my reserves. It wasn't a fortune. I'd burned through most on Devon's nuptials and supporting them during their stay, leaving roughly $3,000 tucked away for crises. But this qualified as a crisis, not financial, but one of self-respect. I headed to the home improvement shop and selected hues. Cream for the lounge, pale green for the cooking area, a gentle yellow for my sleeping quarters. A staffer, a fellow called Marcus Reed, aided in piling it all into a taxi. "Planning to tackle the job solo, miss?" he inquired, sounding worried. "Absolutely," I answered, and for the first time in weeks a grin crossed my lips. "I'll handle the painting myself." I dove in that very afternoon. I shifted the pieces, shielded surfaces with yesterday's papers, and rolled up my sleeves. I'd never tackled a full interior repaint before, but I picked it up quickly. The opening day turned chaotic. I ended up splattered head to toe. I smudged the rug, a drape too, yet I pressed on. As I continued, an odd sensation emerged. Each swipe of the roller, each transformed panel, seemed to layer fresh starts over old wounds. I was blanketing history with creations of my own. Mrs. Jenkins checked in daily. "Eleanor, you're wearing yourself out this way. Let someone professional take over." But hiring help didn't appeal. I yearned to shape it manually. I needed that sense of command in my existence. Over the next fortnight, I kept at the brushes. My spine throbbed. My limbs ached. Still, I persisted. And upon completing the lounge, beholding those vibrant, spotless barriers, an emotion surged that I'd missed for months. Accomplishment. Yet a nagging doubt lingered. An unrest that kept me tossing. How was Devon faring? Was he content in that grand estate? Did I cross his mind at all? That parental instinct, the one that endures, still fretted over him, still longed for him, leaving me feeling vulnerable and silly. Then a memory surfaced. Jasmine Hayes, my colleague Jasmine, from the workplace I'd toiled at, I'd known Jasmine for countless years. She'd transformed into a lawyer by burning the midnight oil through night classes for ages. We hadn't crossed paths much recently, but our friendship ran deep. Perhaps she could shed light on my choices. Not to take Devon to court, I'd never go there, but to safeguard myself, to ensure this home, my sole possession, stayed securely mine. I dialed her number. Her tone on the line carried surprise mixed with delight. "Eleanor, it's been ages. How have you been?" And right then, I let the truth slip out. "Not great, Jasmine. I really need to chat with you. Can we get together?" We set up a meeting for the following day at a cafe close to her workplace. Back then, I had no clue that single phone call would alter my world completely. The spot where I linked up with Jasmine was this quaint, inviting little cafe, a far cry from the upscale dining spots Candace was likely gracing these days. I showed up 15 minutes ahead of time, jittery, unsure of precisely what I'd share. As Jasmine entered, I was taken aback by her evolution. Gone was the shy office assistant from my memories. These days, she strode with assurance, dressed in chic professional outfits and toted a sleek leather portfolio. She'd risen to a position of significance. I felt insignificant beside her, yet upon spotting me, her features brightened with that familiar, heartfelt grin. She pulled me into a firm hug, and in that moment, a warmth washed over me that I hadn't experienced in forever. True belonging. "Eleanor, lay it all out for me," she urged once we'd settled in. So I did, recounting from the instant Devon encountered Candace up to their departure. I shared the degradations, Vivian's disdain, the vicious remarks Candace had hurled at me before the entire neighborhood. I described those endless, restless nights pondering my failings as a parent. Jasmine absorbed it all quietly, though I noticed her face tightening with each revelation. Once I'd wrapped up, she reached over and clasped my hand. "Eleanor, Their actions toward you are beyond words, but I've got to pose a key query. That residence you're in, who's listed as the owner? It's mine, I answered. I purchased it using my husband's life insurance payout 3 decades back, all titled in my name. Jasmine gave a pensive nod. That's positive. Really positive. Has Devin got any paperwork naming him as a joint holder? Nope, we never bothered with that. What makes you suspect he'd attempt to claim my place? Folks with a wealthy mother-in-law like that, you can't predict. But there's a bigger point I want you to grasp, Eleanor. Devin's choice to leave you high and dry, offering zero assistance, could legally qualify as elder neglect. You're 64. Should you choose, you could pursue proceedings. I went rigid. Litigate against my son. Absolutely not, Jasmine. I wouldn't dream of it. I'm not pushing you to, just informing you of your protections, that you're far from vulnerable. Devin owes you duties, both legal and ethical, that he's deliberately disregarded. Hold on to every message, log each conversation, or better yet, their absence. Record it all, not for immediate use, but because circumstances can shift unexpectedly. Her advice echoed in my thoughts for days on end. Rights were mine. Vulnerability wasn't my fate. Such a straightforward idea, yet profoundly empowering. Throughout my existence, I'd been the giver, the yielder, the one diminishing herself to let others flourish. But that pattern could end now. Weeks blurred into months, stretching to 2 full ones. I pressed on with the home improvements. Post-painting, I tackled the dripping sink in the bathroom. I brought in Marcus, the fellow from the local supply shop, for tasks beyond my solo reach. He proved reliable and upright, a diligent kid who billed reasonably and delivered top-notch results. Together, we revived the yard, sowing fresh blooms and mending the barrier. I swapped out the faded drapes for fresh, pale beige ones that allowed sunlight to flood in. I added greenery to the lounge area. Gradually, the space was renewing, mirroring my own renewal. The manual labor had trimmed my figure. Outdoor time had brought a healthy glow to my complexion. Yet the deepest shift lay within. My outlook had evolved. The fearful, wounded figure shedding tears nightly was fading. In her stead, a resilient version emerged, one whose worth didn't hinge on others' nods. One evening, as I tended to the yard greenery with the hose, my cell buzzed. An unfamiliar caller. Briefly, I considered ignoring it, but intuition urged me to pick up. Mom. Devin's voice came across odd, strained, nearing panic. My pulse raced. After nearly 3 months of total quiet contact at last. Devin, everything all right? Uh-huh. Yeah, doing okay. Hey, Mom, hear me out. I need a big ask. It's crucial. A favor. No, I miss you. No apology for the radio silence. No checking in on me. Straight to the point. What is it? My reply emerged chillier than planned. Could you spot me some cash? $5,000. It's pressing. Promise I'll square it within 2 months. Silence hung. $5,000. I possessed precisely. I had $5,200 sitting in my bank account. That was every penny of my savings, what's remained after purchasing supplies to repair the house. It served as my safety net, the source of my inner calm. What do you want the money for, Devin? He paused for a moment. It's just bills, unexpected costs popping up. I can't go into details right now, but I truly need it. Bills. Aren't you staying in a lavish estate with your wealthy mother-in-law? What sort of bills could you possibly face? Mom, please don't lecture me. Are you going to assist or not? The icy edge in his tone stung worse than any outburst from Candace. This was my own child, the young man I'd nurtured, addressing me like I was merely an ATM, something to draw from without thought. Devin, it's been 3 months since I last laid eyes on you. You haven't reached out a single time to check if I'm okay. And now you phone out of the blue, requesting cash. Do you honestly think I'll agree? I figured you'd respond this way. You're always so predictable, forever casting yourself as the martyr. Fine. If you're unwilling to help, just admit it. In that instant, a shift occurred deep within me, but not one fueled by sorrow. It was a moment of sharp insight. I finally recognized my son as the self-centered individual he'd turned into, one who only approached when he required something from me. "No, Devin, I'm not lending you the money." The quiet on the line stretched on. Then faintly, I caught Candace yelling in the distance, words too muffled to make out. Devin exhaled sharply in annoyance. "All right, great. I knew better than to rely on you. Goodbye, Mom." And with that, he disconnected. I remained in the yard clutching the phone, a peculiar blend of ache and relief washing over me. I'd refused him. For the first time ever, I'd turned down my son. And though it pained me, it also rang true. That evening, I reached out to Jasmine and shared the details of the conversation. She gave a soft, impressed whistle. $5,000, Eleanor, there's trouble brewing in that grand house. Wealthy folks don't ask for $5,000 unless major issues are at play. You really believe that? Absolutely. Listen, I know a few people. Allow me to poke around a bit regarding Vivian, your daughter-in-law's mom. It pays to understand the company your child keeps. I wasn't sure how to process her offer. One side of me preferred ignorance. Another simply yearned to press forward with my own existence, leaving Devin and his fresh household in the past. Yet a deeper part, the maternal instinct that lingered, demanded assurance of his well-being. Despite his rejection of me, despite how he'd taken advantage, he remained my boy. A week passed before Jasmine contacted me again. Her tone carried gravity. "Eleanor, this requires a face-to-face. Could you stop by my office tomorrow?" The following day, as I entered her workspace, Jasmine had a file resting on her desk. I took a seat and she passed it over. I've uncovered some intriguing details on Vivian. To begin with, that mansion isn't her property. She's leasing it. And from what my connections report, she's fallen behind on the rent. Plus, her so-called import venture is drowning in debt. She's been sustaining a facade, Eleanor. Nothing but illusions and bluffs. I gazed at the documents, struggling to accept the reality. The high-end vehicle, the designer outfits, all leased or financed. Vivian was mired in obligations, debt piling high, and there was additional revelation. It turns out she's been billing Devin and Candace for housing. She demands payment for their quarters, meals, the works. Your son isn't freeloading in luxury. He's footing the bill for it. And Vivian appears to be extracting every last cent from the pair. A swirl of feelings overtook me. Glee that Candace's dream life had crumbled, yet worry too. After all, Devin was my flesh and blood. Regardless of his abandonment, I couldn't bear for him to endure hardship. "How should I handle this knowledge?" I inquired. Jasmine lifted her shoulders. "Hold on to it for the time being. My gut says it'll prove useful before long." Werting, she proved correct. Just 2 weeks hence, on a drizzly Thursday evening, my front door chimed. Upon answering, I faced them. Devin and Candace, luggage in tow, expressions etched with surrender, wordlessly pleading entry. Tony, the rideshare operator who'd ferried them, observed the unfolding drama with saucer-wide eyes. But I was no longer the woman they'd discarded, and my forthcoming actions would stun them all. As the door swung open, revealing Devin and Candace drenched in the downpour, suitcases dripping beside them, the world froze. Precisely 3 months and 2 weeks had elapsed since our previous encounter. 3 months and 2 weeks since Candace had hurled those vicious insults my way before the whole community. Now they stood on my threshold clad in the very upscale garments from their departure, though now creased and soiled. Candace's haughty glare had vanished. Her eyes appeared puffy and bloodshot. Devin averted his gaze from mine. Tony, still by the vehicle, was retrieving further bags. I knew those pieces of luggage well, the identical set they'd taken, now marred and battered, like they'd endured rough handling. "Mom," Devin uttered at last. His words cracked with strain. "We have to discuss things with you. Might." Might we step inside? I remained, rooted in place. I simply lingered there. They stood in the doorway, gazing at us. Candace huddled inside a flimsy sweater that offered no real protection against the downpour. She shivered uncontrollably, though I couldn't tell if it was the chill or some deeper distress. I spotted that familiar green gown she had on during the moving day, the one that must have cost a fortune, way more than my monthly paycheck. Now, its hem was caked in mud. Talk, I echoed, drawing out the word deliberately. How intriguing. Just 3 months back, you had zero interest in chatting. Back then, all you craved was to chase your lavish dreams and abandon me to fade away in this run-down, neglected home. You faded has-been. Wasn't that how you put it, Candace? She recoiled visibly. For the first time in all our years of acquaintance, she stood there, utterly at a loss for words. Her lips parted, yet nothing emerged. Devin advanced a pace. Mom, come on, we screwed up big time. Things with Vivian didn't pan out as planned. Didn't go as you hoped. My tone came out sharper than ever before. What exactly fell short of your grand visions? Was the estate not opulent enough? The meals not lavish sufficient? Or maybe Vivian proved less forthcoming with her wealth than you'd imagined. Tony wrapped up with the luggage and drew near. That'll be $120 for the trip, ma'am. Devin stammered. I don't have bills on me at the moment. Can I do a bank transfer? The app's glitching in this storm. Gotta have cash. An uncomfortable hush fell over them. Devin fumbled in his pockets. Candace rummaged through her bag and fished out a crumpled $50 note. Together, they scraped together just $115. They came up short by $5. I observed the whole exchange in silence. These were the very pair who, mere months earlier, had sped off in a high-end vehicle, boasting about their upscale future. And here they were, unable to cover a simple fare. Tony glanced my way, expectant. He figured I'd step in as usual, the reliable, ever-giving mom who'd cough up the extra $5 and fix everything like always. Instead, I folded my arms. Sorry, Tony, I didn't call for this ride. Devin's eyes bulged in shock. Candace appeared ready to break down. Tony exhaled in annoyance. Listen, people, I need my money. Got mouths to feed at home. We'll settle up, Devin pleaded urgently. Give me 48 hours and I'll wire the full amount, gratuity and all. Promise. Tony seemed skeptical, but he pocketed the $115 in the end. You've got 2 days, no more, or I'll file a report. He climbed back into his vehicle, grumbling about finicky passengers, and pulled away, stranding the trio in the intensifying rain. Devin hoisted a bag. Mom, we're drenched to the bone. Let us in, will you? I glanced over my shoulder at the home I'd transformed. Freshly coated walls, spotless corners, my hard-won haven pieced together alone these last 3 months. It was where I'd reclaimed my calm after endless belittlement and exploitation. Then my eyes returned to my boy and his spouse, poised there, assuming I'd cave as before and put them first. No, I stated flatly. The quiet that ensued was total. The storm itself appeared to pause briefly. Devin stared at me like the refusal hadn't registered. Huh. I repeated firmly. No, you're not stepping foot inside my house. Candace let loose a choked cry. Eleanor, I beg you, we've got no place else. Vivian booted us out. She left us penniless with nothing. For 4 straight days, we've crashed in budget motels, but we're tapped out. Just 1 night, please. Just 1 night, I mimicked. The same line you fed me when you crashed here temporarily for a couple months, and those months stretched to nearly 2 full years. Like the way you made me feel worthless in my own space every day of that time. Like when you had your buddies over and kept muttering apologies for the modest digs you endured. I messed up. I mean it. I'm truly regretful. Candace's sobs flowed freely, blending with the droplets on her face. You know what's heartbreaking, Candace? What? I trust you. I buy your remorse. But it's not for how you trampled over me like trash. It's for landing in the mess I once knew. You regret your own crash, not the hurt you caused me. Devin let the bag thud to the ground. Mom, I'm your flesh and blood. You gonna seriously abandon me out here? Those manipulative phrases, crafted to stir my shame and awaken the parental pull he was sure lingered in me. And sure enough, it hit. That familiar ache in my chest, the impulse to swing the door wide and welcome them. Yet another memory surfaced too. Jasmine's advice echoed, "You've got boundaries. You're no pushover." I recalled the tear-filled evenings, questioning my every fault, the neighborhood shaming, the scrawls on my fence, the sympathetic stares from folks nearby. Devin, 3 months ago when you walked away, you ditched me. Not vice versa, I shot back. You picked a palace and cash over your mom. You stayed silent while your spouse ridiculed me before everyone. You never once reached out in all that time to check if I was okay. The only time you bothered to call was to hit me up for $5,000. And the moment I turned you down, you slammed the phone on me. Look, I'm not about to abandon you out in the cold. You landed yourself there. But Mom, come on, no buts about it, Devin. For 3 solid months, I've been pouring my heart into restoring this place. Take a look at those walls. I gave them a fresh coat of paint all on my own. Check out the garden. Yeah, I dug in and planted every bit of it myself. This isn't the rundown spot you walked away from anymore. It's become my haven, my safe space. And honestly, you two aren't welcome in it any longer. Candace dropped to her knees right there on the slick asphalt. Eleanor, I'm pleading with you, don't put us through this. We screwed up big time, I get that, but we can't survive without your help. You need me, I shot back, the bitterness rising in my throat. Funny how that works. Now you need me. Back when you had that sprawling estate, I was invisible. When cash was flowing, I didn't exist. You only remember me when everyone else has bailed. Mrs. Jenkins stepped out from her porch, umbrella in hand, hovering in her front yard to observe. Mr. Powell emerged too. These same folks who'd seen me shamed 3 months back were now watching the tables turn. But this round, I wasn't the one crumbling. I held all the cards. Devin raked his fingers through his soaked hair. All right, message received. We acted like jerks. We took you for granted. Tell us what it'll take. Want us groveling on our knees, begging forgiveness over and over. Count me in. I'll drop to the ground right now. I'll go to any lengths, Mom. Just get us inside for the night. We'll sort out somewhere else by morning. No way, Mom. It's a downpour out here. We're broke. What's our next move? Beats me, Devin. That's on you now. Why not ring up Vivian or Candace's loaded buddies? Or hell, try scraping by like I did when you ditched me solo. Handle it on your own. Candace stayed knelt there, tears streaming as she wept. Devin stared me down, his face a storm of shock and fury. He couldn't wrap his head around how his mom, the one who'd always caved, always let it slide, was now drawing a hard line. You know the real kicker. I pressed on, the words spilling out like a dam finally breaking after years of pressure. Even right here, in this mess, you're not showing up because you actually miss me. No real sorry from you. You didn't roll in realizing how crappy you treated me. This is just desperation, no options left. I'm your fallback, your absolute last resort. And tough luck, because I'm done playing that role for anybody. I grabbed the doorknob, poised to shut it all out. Devin lunged forward in a last-ditch effort. Hold on, just a second, let me lay it out. Vivian turned out nothing like we imagined. She duped us completely, used us like cheap labor in her mansion, billed us for every damn thing, the meals, the utilities, you name it. Life with her was harsher than it ever was at home with you. And once we couldn't cover the tab, she booted us like trash. Snatched our phones, cards, the works, left us nothing but these bags of outfits. Mom, yeah, we blew it bad, but blood's blood. You always preached family comes first. I locked eyes with him, unflinching. I did say that once. But family loyalty's a two-way street, Devin. Yours proved I'm not in the club to you, just a handy option when things got tough. With that, I slipped back indoors and sealed the door behind me. Candace's cries echoed, calling my name. Devin hammered away at the panels, but I held firm. Leaning against the frame from inside, my pulse raced like a drum. Tears traced paths down my face, yet they weren't from grief. They marked my freedom. The banging dragged on outside for a bit longer. Then voices cut through. Mrs. Jenkins approached with her oversized umbrella, suggesting a local shelter for them. Mr. Powell chipped in some cash for a cheap room. My neighbors, the very ones Candace had looked down on, were extending kindness I wasn't. Still, that was their call. I'd locked in mine. Sleep evaded me that night. I perched in the revamped living room, sipping tea and replaying the chaos in my mind. Guilt nagged at one corner of my heart. Another urged me to fling open the door and pull them close. But the core of me, the unyielding part, confirmed I'd stood tall. For once I'd picked self-respect over their pleas, and yeah, it scared the hell out of me. But damn, it felt right. Come morning, I stirred after barely a wink, rising before dawn. Devin and Candace topped my thoughts. Where'd they crash? Were they safe? That inner mom voice tugged with worry and remorse. Yet I pushed through, brewing coffee and settling into the garden I'd mended. The blooms I'd set in the ground now burst with color. Sunlight caught the rain-kissed foliage, making it gleam like new beginnings. Around 9 a.m., Mrs. Jenkins rapped at the door. She arrived with warm pastries straight from the oven and her familiar look of worry. "Eleanor, you holding up?" she inquired, stepping into the kitchen. She halted, taking in the fresh walls and updates. "Wow, this place looks stunning. Haven't peeked inside since you began the overhaul." "Thanks, Carol. Pull up a chair." "Sure, let me get you a cup of coffee." We settled at the tiny kitchen table. Carol toyed with her mug, obviously eager to speak, but unsure where to begin. "Just come out with it," I urged her at last. "I realize you're here to discuss what happened yesterday." She let out a deep breath. I brought them to the shelter at Pastor Michael's church. He arranged a space for them for 3 evenings. Eleanor, they appeared utterly broken. Candace wept nonstop during the drive. Devin hardly uttered a word. That old heaviness settled in my heart again. "And you're here to say I was too tough on them?" "Actually, no," Carol answered, catching me off guard. "I'm here to say how proud I am of you. Standing up like you did last night requires a kind of bravery most people lack. I witnessed their behavior toward you, Eleanor. I saw them walk out as if you were worthless, and now they return expecting all to be forgiven. No, dear, you made the correct choice." Her affirmation eased a tremendous burden from my shoulders. I'd been worried that others would view me as a cold, unfeeling parent. Yet Carol, who'd been my friend for 2 decades and observed it all, stood by me. Still, are they managing all right? I inquired, regardless. Do they have enough to eat? The church provides their meals, plus Frank handed them $200, more than they merit, in my opinion. But you know Frank, he's got a heart as pure as gold. I nodded, experiencing a blend of ease and another vague sensation I couldn't quite pinpoint. I didn't wish hardship on Devin, yet I had no desire to bail him out. It felt like balancing on a fragile, emotional wire. The days that followed felt odd. I was aware that Devin and Candace were staying at the shelter merely 4 blocks away, but I resisted visiting. I avoided phoning. I pressed on with my routine. I focused on refining the house's touches. Marcus showed up to fit new lamps in the lounge. The space was growing cozier, truly resembling a home. One evening, as I tended to the garden flowers, I caught voices from the road. It was Candace. She was arguing loudly on her cell. "I don't give a damn what it takes. I need your support. I'm family, your cousin, remember. Or have you forgotten the cash I loaned for your venture?" Silence followed. Then Candace yelled in anger and ended the call. I observed her trudge along the sidewalk, posture sagging in defeat. She wore the identical outfit from 3 days prior. Her once impeccable hair now hung limp and unkempt. I ducked behind the hedge to stay hidden, torn between a sense of vindication and compassion. That evening, Jasmine rang me. "How are things? I learned about the situation." "How'd you hear, Eleanor? This is a close-knit community. Word spreads fast. Carol knows my aunt well. She filled me in on the details. And listen, you handled it properly. I don't feel great about it." "You shouldn't. You ought to feel empowered. It's not the same." "Any second thoughts?" Her words made me pause. Did I have regrets? "No," I said eventually. "I stand by it. That's what I wanted to hear, because I've got additional details on Vivian that I figured would interest you. I can drop by tomorrow." The following morning, Jasmine brought yet another file. We took seats in the sitting room, and she laid out various papers on the low table. Vivian's facing major money woes. She's got legal claims from 3 separate lenders. The property she's leasing faces eviction next month. Her supposed import operation was never real. It served as a cover for laundering cash, and officials are now probing her. Eleanor, that lady's on a path to prison. I sat stunned. Is Devin aware of this? Probably not. Vivian excels at maintaining a facade. But wait, there's more. I discovered she billed Devin and Candace $2,000 monthly for that space. $2,000. That excludes groceries or extras. She drained them completely. That's why your boy hit you up for the $5,000. He was frantic, scrambling to settle what he owed Vivian. $2,000 each month. I echoed in disbelief. They could have afforded a solid apartment for less. Precisely. Yet Vivian persuaded them that residing in the grand house was a smart move for their prospects, that the networks they'd build there would pay off big. All deception. No networks, no chances, just pure taking advantage. I scanned the files, waves of feelings washing over me. For one, I'd been wise to deny Devin the funds. It would have flowed directly to Vivian's pockets. For another, my child had fallen prey to a cunning deceiver. How should I handle knowing this? I wondered aloud. Hold off for the moment. I simply aimed to share the complete picture. Sure, Devin and Candace chose poorly, but they were also played by someone far more cunning. Once Jasmine departed, I lingered in thought for hours. Devin wasn't evil at heart. He was just vulnerable. He'd picked the misguided path. He'd been lured by visions of riches and prestige, but underneath, he remained my boy, the one I'd nurtured. Still, I grasped another truth. Being manipulated didn't wipe away his actions toward me. It couldn't wipe away the shame, the desertion, or the disregard. One wrong didn't erase the other. That Friday afternoon, Pastor Michael rapped on my door. He was an elderly fellow, around 70, with gentle yet resolute eyes. "Eleanor, we must discuss your boy." I welcomed him inside and offered a glass of cool water. He settled onto the couch, gazing at me with that familiar clerical look, like he was gearing up for a homily. Devin and Candace must vacate the shelter by tomorrow. The 3 nights I extended have expired. There's simply no more room. I get it, Pastor. Devin requested I speak with you on his behalf to plead his case. He shared his side of the story with me. And how did you respond? I laid out the facts. He'd committed a grave wrong by leaving you behind, shirking his ethical responsibilities. Still, I added that redemption is possible for anyone. I'm not suggesting you take them back into your home, Eleanor. That would be excessive. But maybe you could assist in locating housing or provide a loan to help them rebuild. I met his gaze squarely. Pastor, respectfully, that's not happening. He let out a heavy breath. I see you're hurt, my child, but holding grudges isn't the way. This isn't about grudges. It's about safeguarding myself. For 3 months, I've been piecing my life back together. If I open the door even slightly now, I'll slip right back into that cycle of putting others first who don't appreciate it. Devin's grown. He's 32, educated, capable of employment and progress, but not on my dime. Not any longer. Pastor Michael stayed quiet for what seemed like ages, then gave a gradual nod. You make a valid point. God bless you, Eleanor, and grant Devin and Candace the fortitude to deal with what they've wrought. Once he'd gone, I retreated to my garden and wept, not from sorrow, but from release. Each visitor who arrived hoping to sway me, to cast me as the endlessly tolerant, enduring parent, departed, grasping my stance. I wasn't harsh. I was resilient. That evening, in my serene, peaceful home, all to myself, I realized I'd passed an irreversible threshold. No turning back. Devin needed to chart his own course, and I was at last discovering my own. Come Saturday morning, I awoke enveloped in an odd sense of calm. For the first time in ages, I'd slumbered soundly through the night, free of bad dreams or jolting awake over thoughts of Devin. I fixed a simple meal, coffee and toast, and lingered in my restored garden, soaking in the dawn light. Butterflies danced amid the fresh blooms. It all seemed ideal. Then the chimes sounded. My pulse quickened. Devin once more. Another plea. I inhaled deeply and approached the door. Instead, there stood Marcus, the helpful young clerk from the hardware shop who'd aided with the fixes. "Morning, Mrs. Eleanor. Sorry if I'm intruding this early." "No worries at all, Marcus." "Trouble?" He offered a bashful grin. "Nah, all good. See, my grandma's cat birthed a litter 2 months back. They're weaned and ready for new homes, and it crossed my mind. You might want one. This place has such a warm vibe now, it'd suit a furry friend." The notion caught me off guard. Pets had never been part of my world. Devin had allergies as a kid, and afterward it just never occurred to me. Yet gazing at my updated home, my renewed existence, the prospect of a tiny companion suddenly appealed deeply. What do they look like? We've got 3, a pure white one, a calico with orange and black spots, and a gray with vivid green eyes. Super cuddly, ma'am, and housebroken already. "Show me the gray," I blurted out on impulse. An hour on, Marcus showed up with a box. He lifted the lid, revealing the sweetest kitten imaginable. Sleek gray coat, sparkling emerald gaze, petite and flawless. She eyed me inquisitively and let out a gentle mew. "What a darling," I murmured, cradling her. The little one nestled right into me, rumbling with contentment. A warmth spread through my core. "She's staying," Marcus beamed. "Figured she'd win you over. Grandma reckons this one's the cuddliest, like she was holding out for the perfect match." With Marcus gone, I curled up on the couch, the kitten nestled in my lap. I petted her softly as she vibrated with purrs. "Time for a name," I said to her. Pausing briefly, I grinned. "Luna it is. You showed up right when my world was resetting, like a fresh lunar phase." The days that followed shifted everything. The house no longer echoed with solitude. Luna trailed after me constantly, curling up in my sheets at night, perching on my knees during TV time. Mrs. Jenkins stopped by to see her and was smitten instantly. "Goodness, Eleanor, isn't she stunning?" This space craved this kind of energy, vibrant and uplifting. She nailed it. The home had shed its aura of past degradations. It now truly belonged to me, a sanctuary. One afternoon, grabbing supplies for Luna at the pet shop, I bumped into Wee, collided right into each other while navigating a sharp turn in the supermarket aisle. Even with those oversized dark shades on, I spotted her right away. She appeared changed somehow. Her outfits, fancy as ever, hung rumpled on her frame. That glossy, high-end hairstyle had lost its luster. She seemed worn out, aged beyond her years. "Eleanor," she uttered in astonishment, slipping off her sunglasses. "Vivian," I shot back, my tone icy. An uncomfortable hush settled between us. Her gaze drifted to my shopping cart, piled with feline chow, litter supplies, and playthings. Then it shifted to me, sizing me up like she always had. Yet this time, she didn't encounter the timid, subdued figure from her memories. "I've caught wind of Devin and Candace," she ventured at last, "that they showed up at your place." "Indeed they did," I confirmed, "and you refused to let them inside." "Correct." She emitted a sharp, resentful chuckle. "Can't fault you for that. They were utter idiots. I figured Devin had some spine, some drive, but he proved just as spineless as his dad must have been. Fury surged through me like wildfire. Don't you ever speak of my husband that way. He was infinitely superior to you, a decent, diligent soul, not some deceiver thriving on facades." Her stare sharpened. "What did you just say?" "Exactly what you heard. I know it all about you, Vivian. Your so-called mansion. It's leased. You're drowning in debts. You're billing Devin and Candace $2,000 monthly just for a bedroom. I know the whole story." Her complexion drained of color. For the first time in all our years of acquaintance, Vivian appeared diminished, exposed. "You have no clue," she muttered, though her words rang hollow. "I know plenty. You exploited my boy, drained him dry until nothing remained, and when your own troubles mounted, you discarded them like trash, much like they did to me." They chose their path. True enough. And now they're facing the consequences, just as you'll face yours. Word is the officials are deeply probing your import dealings, or rather, your phantom operation. Her features contorted in anger. "Mind your tongue, you nosy old hag." "Oh, planning to take me to court? Be my guest. I'd relish watching your accounts laid bare in a courtroom." I edged nearer, dropping my voice to a whisper. "You pegged me as frail and dim-witted, easy to dismiss. But you misjudged. I raised my son single-handedly. I purchased my home on my own. I pieced myself back together solo. As you flounder amid your deceptions and obligations, I've grown unbreakable." I didn't linger for her retort. I settled my bill and strode from the shop, chin up defiantly. My fingers trembled. My pulse raced. Yet a surge of strength coursed through me. I'd finally unleashed the raw truth at the one who'd inflicted so much pain. That evening, Jasmine rang me up, buzzing with thrill. "Eleanor, you won't credit this. Vivian got hauled in by the cops today. Turns out the probe accelerated beyond predictions. They're hitting her with fraud and tax-dodging charges. Court awaits." I sank onto the couch, letting it sink in. Luna hopped up to nestle against me. And Devin, is he tangled in this? Nope, he was clueless. Just another mark of his mother-in-law's schemes. So any chance of recouping the cash they handed her, it's vanished for good. After the call, I sat mulling it over. Devin and Candace had forfeited it all, their funds, their dignity, their illusions of opulence. Meanwhile, I, the one they'd cast aside, thrived more than before. Come Sunday, I ventured out for something I hadn't tried in ages, a solitary stroll through the park. I wandered the paths, observing families at play, pairs entwined in affection. Once such sights would stir isolation and sorrow in me. But today, liberation washed over me. Happiness didn't hinge on companionship anymore. I possessed my home, my little cat, my serene core. On a bench there, I encountered a lady named Ruth, roughly my age, with neatly coiffed silver locks and a warm grin. Our chat flowed easily, revealing she too dwelled solo. She'd navigated her own rocky patch with her kids. "Feels like a weight lifted, right?" she remarked. "That moment you grasp you needn't exist for everyone else. You can exist for you." "Absolutely," I answered, beaming. Utterly freeing. We swapped contacts and set a coffee date for the following week. A fresh friendship blossomed, a novel bond. My days brimmed with positives, with uplifting folks, free from Devin, Candace, or any poisonous influences that once pulled me under. Back home that afternoon, I settled in the yard, Luna curled in my embrace, gazing at my abode. The fresh coats of paint shimmered in the waning light. The blooms I'd sown burst vibrantly. It was all flawless. It was all mine. For the inaugural time, total contentment enveloped me, content with my essence, my place in the world, no longer craving my son's validation, no more the endlessly giving, enduring matriarch, just Eleanor, a 64-year-old survivor who'd weathered the tempest and emerged fortified. My cell buzzed, a call from an unfamiliar line. I let it go. If Devin, I had no words left. If another voicemail would do. Right then, I simply craved the joy. Oh, what a serene instant of peace. Luna's purring grew even deeper, as though she sensed my inner calm precisely. I ran my hand softly over her fur and shut my eyelids, allowing the sunlight to bathe my cheeks. This was my reality these days, and it felt utterly lovely. The days kept slipping by, and my existence bloomed in directions I hadn't dreamed possible. Ruth turned into a trusted companion. We'd meet up bi-weekly for strolls through the green or quick cafe stops. She brought me into her circle of peers, ladies around our years, who gathered every Thursday for dance sessions. Initially, I felt shy, yet they urged me to give it a shot. That initial lesson turned chaotic. I trod on my partner's toes thrice and tangled up in the sequence of moves. Still, the group chuckled alongside me, never mocking. Come the third session, I caught the groove. There was a freeing joy in swaying my frame to the tune's pulse, in releasing all worries and just being present. In that dancing hour, I shed the label of deserted parent. I escaped the sting of public shame. I was merely Eleanor, lost in motion. One evening post-lesson, Ruth and I headed to sip some Java. She gazed at me with that familiar look, the one signaling a weighty thought. Eleanor, you've changed, beyond just your looks. Sure, the pounds have dropped and you glow, but it's deeper. In your gaze, your stride, you're emerging anew. Her insight stirred deep feelings in me. I do feel renewed. It's odd, really. Devon's departure seemed like it would shatter me, yet it set me loose instead. Occasionally, folks must exit our world for us to uncover our true selves apart from them, she observed thoughtfully. On the side, whispers from local chatter reached me about Devon and Candace. Post their time at the church haven, they'd secured a cramped spot in a flop house on the town's rougher edge. Devon picked up gigs as a bike courier, a role he'd dismissed outright before. Candace took on domestic scrubbing jobs. The very person who'd scorned my meals as plebeian now toiled over strangers' tiles to get by. Mr. Powell mentioned spotting them one day. They appeared drained, utterly worn out. Devon caught sight of me and averted his eyes. Not a greeting passed his lips. Regret etched every line of his features. Hearing this didn't spark triumph in me, nor compassion. Just a calm detachment settled in. They faced the fallout of their decisions, much like I navigated mine. During an October afternoon, as I tended my garden with the sprinkler, a figure neared my home. It was Candace, solo. She seemed transformed beyond recognition. Strands tied back in a plain tail, face bare of cosmetics. Faded denim and a threadbare top clung to her, but what hit hardest was her demeanor. Gone was the haughty air she'd once flaunted like royalty. Only fatigue and meekness remained. She halted at my barrier. Eleanor, might we chat? I set aside the watering tool and met her stare. Does Devon realize you're here? No, he'd refuse to show. Claims his pride blocks any more pleas, but I must speak with you. I pondered sending her away, but her stance, that raw sincerity I'd never witnessed, held me back. 5 minutes right here. She dipped her head in thanks, remaining beyond the gate, honoring some unseen line. I came to say sorry. I get it probably rings hollow from me. I treated you terribly, but please, let me voice it. All right, go on. My upbringing drilled it in. Wealth ruled all, image defined worth. The broke were beneath. I bought into it fully. I wed Devon spotting promise in him, but also figuring I could shape him into the affluent winner my mom envisioned. Sharing your space daily hammered home what I rejected. Modest, basic, unremarkable. So I lashed out. Diminished you to elevate myself. She halted, brushing off emerging drops. Yet Mom exploited us the way I exploited you, drained us until barren, then tossed us aside. That's my awakening. I see the hurt I inflicted, the wounds I left. Now I mop others' homes, don secondhand rags, have no refuge left. And what should I do with this? I replied flatly. Nothing at all. No demands from me. Just needed you aware. I'm remorseful. Aware forgiveness is off the table. That's fine. I haven't earned it. Only hoped you'd grasp how wretched I acted. I studied her at length. This remorse differed from her rainy plea a month prior. That frantic bid felt contrived. Today's rang true, anguished, authentic. I trust you, I conceded at last. Trust it's sincere, but you're spot on there. No pardon from me. Not yet. Perhaps not ever. Since forgiving isn't a gift handed over ease. Trust isn't handed out just because of a sorry. It's built through consistent effort over time. Honestly, Candace, I'm not willing to invest that effort in you anymore. She dipped her head, taking in what I said. I get it. Thanks for hearing me out. As she started to go, she paused. Your home is lovely, incidentally. It always has been. I was simply too caught up to notice. I observed her heading off along the road, posture drooped, yet carrying a hint of calm in her stride. There was no sense of triumph, no strong emotion at all, merely a serene end to an old story. That evening, Jasmine dropped by with updates. Vivian's court date is set for the following month. My source in the DA's office tells me the case is airtight. She's likely facing multiple years behind bars. Poor Devin, I murmured without thinking. Then my own response caught me off guard. Jasmine eyed me with interest. You still care about him. He's my boy. I'll always have that concern deep down, but it doesn't compel me to bail him out. Those feelings can coexist. You're tougher than you realize, Eleanor. As November rolled in, crisp winds brought a sense of renewal. My daily habits had turned enjoyable. I'd rise with the sun, brew some coffee, romp around with Luna, and care for my flowers. Every Thursday meant salsa lessons. Sundays were for strolls in the park alongside Ruth. My place stayed spotless and inviting. I'd added fresh artwork to the walls and greenery to all the nooks. Life buzzed with energy and brightness everywhere. One crisp morning, Mr. Powell rapped on my door. Eleanor, I've got a request. My nephew, Kenneth Ken Davis, has just settled here. He's seeking a position in accounting. Might you offer him some guidance? You've got years of experience from that firm. Sure thing, I'd be happy to. Ken proved to be a pleasant fellow in his 50s, separated, sporting a timid yet sincere grin. We chatted endlessly about the industry, local companies that could be recruiting. As he departed, he expressed deep gratitude. You're so generous, Mrs. Eleanor. Few folks bother guiding newcomers like that. Once he'd gone, a realization hit me. I was encountering fresh faces, forging authentic bonds. My life was opening up in organic, wonderful directions. No more stuck in that poisonous cycle of catering to Devin and putting up with Candace. December followed, with holiday lights twinkling on every corner. Usually the season stirred melancholy, recalling Devin's young Christmases. But this time around, things felt shifted. Ruth welcomed me to a festive meal with her circle. I jumped at the invite. On the evening of the gathering, while prepping before the mirror, I truly glimpsed myself after so long. My features glowed with vitality. My gaze sparkled. I'd reclaimed a piece of myself buried for ages. True happiness. Not the kind derived from others' contentment, but the real sort born from inner harmony. Luna let out a mew from the mattress, seeming to endorse my look. I chuckled and petted her. Think I pull this off. Her rumble came as an affirmative in my book. The meal was delightful. 8 of us ladies, each with tales of hardship and revival. We giggled, dined, and raised glasses to fresh starts. After years, I belonged. To a group, a makeshift clan of my own. Back home that night, an envelope awaited on my entrance. I tore it open with intrigue. It held a note in script. Mom, I know contact's off the table for you. Fair enough, but I needed you aware I've landed a solid gig. No more food runs. Back in engineering at a company. Pays modest, yet it's progress. Candace and I have a modest but respectable place now. We're adapting to simpler living, valuing our basics. I let you down beyond repair. All I ask is that you know you're on my mind daily, along with all you sacrificed. If opportunity arises, I'll show you the son you always merited. Devin. I scanned the note again. A subtle change stirred within, not absolution, not quite. Perhaps a seed of possibility, an acknowledgement that Devon was evolving, maturing, absorbing lessons. I tucked the paper into a cabinet. No reply from me. Not now, but I wouldn't discard it. The future would reveal the path. January ushered in with biting chill. I'd closed out the previous year amid my budding companions, toasting simply yet merrily at Ruth's with a warm supper. For the first time in ages, New Year's passed without dwelling on absences. Instead, I gave thanks for the abundances I'd gathered. Midway through the month, sipping coffee outdoors in my yard, bundled in a heavy knit, I noticed a vehicle pull up outside. A weathered old ride. Devon emerged from the driver's side, Candace from the passenger. They appeared altered since before, leaner, more resolute, yet a new quality marked their expressions: resolve. Devon clutched a container as they neared my gate and halted there. They stood there quietly, not pressing the buzzer or calling out. They simply gave me space to choose whether to engage. I observed them for quite a while. Luna rested contentedly on my knees, her purrs steady. My coffee steamed warmly. The garden bloomed vibrantly around me. I possessed all I required right there. I could easily dismiss them and retreat indoors. Yet their posture, deferential and enduring, prompted me to rise. I approached the gate without unlatching it. "What brings you here?" Devon raised the container. "We've delivered this for you. It contains every paperwork related to the property. Titles, invoices, all transferred to your ownership. But we need you to understand we'd never attempt to claim your residence." I consulted an attorney and executed this document. He extracted a sheet. This constitutes a formal renunciation of any interest in the estate. Although I held no legal entitlement, I insisted on formalizing it, ensuring your peace of mind forever. I accepted the document and scanned it. It matched his description precisely, a notarized affidavit. Devon formally abandoned all assertions to my dwelling, present and forthcoming. "Why go to these lengths?" I inquired. "Because you devoted your life to me over 3 decades. You acquired this place to provide me stability. You exhausted yourself laboring to fund my schooling. And how did I respond? By betraying your trust outright. The bare minimum I can offer is safeguarding the one asset you cherish." Candace advanced slightly. "Eleanor, there's something else I want to share. I've secured steady employment as an office custodian. The wage is modest, yet it's legitimate. Each day as I scrub surfaces, your image comes to mind. I recall how meticulously you tended your home while I belittled it, how you prepared nourishing meals that I scorned. I've come to appreciate that diligent labor carries honor, a lesson my parent failed to impart. My parent faces incarceration," Devon added, 5 years behind bars. The magistrate noted, "A portion of me senses ease. She won't ensnare others anymore." Candace and I attend counseling sessions. We're exploring the roots of our poor choices, the reasons behind our harsh treatment of you. I gazed at them both. An authenticity shone through their statements, absent in the past. "I'm pleased you're committing to personal growth sincerely, yet that alters nothing about the past. We realize that fully," Devon replied. "We're not seeking absolution here. It wouldn't be earned. Our purpose was merely to inform you of our transformations, our hard-won insights, and that should the distant future bring an opportunity for reconnection, perhaps long from now, we'd embrace it. But if it never arises, we'll respect your stance." I accepted the package of files. "Is there more?" From her bag, Candace retrieved a sealed packet. "This belongs to you. It holds $500. I recognize it's trivial against all you provided, but it's the sum we've managed to accumulate lately. And monthly, we'll contribute further until every debt is settled, the full cost of our ceremony, our sustenance, it all." "I don't require your funds," I responded instinctively. "Kindly take it," Devon urged, "not as a favor to us, but for your benefit, since you merit recouping what you poured into our lives. You shouldn't have borne any of those expenses." I examined the packet closely. $500 seemed insignificant, but given their circumstances, it must have demanded extended frugality and effort. "All right," I conceded at last, grasping it. "I'll receive it, though make no mistake. This doesn't mend our rift. It doesn't signify pardon." "We understand," they affirmed together. "Your path to redemption will be arduous if you're serious about reform, not through promises, but deeds, over extended time." Devin inclined his head, and for the initial instance, moisture gathered in his gaze. "I'll dedicate my remaining days to becoming the child you merited, Mother, regardless of whether absolution comes or if contact ceases entirely. I'll persist in the effort." They pivoted to depart. I observed as they headed to their weathered vehicle, climbed inside, and departed. On this occasion, neither triumph nor anguish stirred within me, merely a serene resolution. They had approached with modesty, acknowledged their errors, and assumed accountability. Did this equate to full pardon? Absolutely not. Absolution doesn't unfold in theatrical instants with eloquent phrases. It emerges gradually through enduring time and reliable behaviors evidencing profound evolution. That same afternoon, Jasmine dropped by. I recounted the encounter with Devin and Candace. She reviewed the official papers and gave an approving nod. "These are airtight. Your property stands fully secure. Moreover, his initiative without prompting reveals depth." Eleanor, what insight does it offer? Perhaps against all odds, he's beginning to grasp the gravity of his actions. Time continued to unfold. Precisely every 30 days, an envelope materialized in my postbox containing cash and a brief message from Devin. "Keeping you in my thoughts, Mom. Wishing you health. Luna's probably grown quite a bit." He sought no favors. He anticipated no reply. He merely honored his commitment to repay his dues. I stowed the packets away in a compartment. I refrained from using the funds. I remained uncertain about how to handle them. I hadn't quite reached that point, but I could see the sincerity behind it. Come March, Ken, Mr. Powell's nephew, asked me out for a meal. He'd scored a fantastic position using the connections I'd shared with him. It was his way of showing gratitude. I agreed, figuring it'd be a brief, polite affair, yet it ended up being one of the best evenings I'd enjoyed in ages. Ken was sharp-witted, amusing, and considerate. He had me chuckling like I hadn't in forever. As he pulled up to my place, he mentioned, "I'd love to get together again, Eleanor, if you're up for it." To my own surprise, I replied, "Sure." It wasn't love at first sight. Not then. Perhaps it never would turn into that. But it offered companionship. It built a bond. It hinted at fresh beginnings, and that felt sufficient. April brought blooms bursting across the yard, along with a deep feeling of revival. 8 months had elapsed since that stormy afternoon when Devin and Candace showed up on my doorstep with their bags, and I'd sent them packing. Those 8 months let me reconstruct my world step by step, crafting it into something finer than before. One evening, as I tended to the greenery with Luna trailing behind through the blossoms, I caught the sound of voices I knew from the road. Devin was there. He was chatting with Mrs. Jenkins, lending a hand with her shopping bags to her home. From behind my fence, I observed him unnoticed. He appeared transformed, leaner yet more robust. His stance, the authentic grin he flashed at the neighbor, convinced me the shift was authentic. After assisting Carol, he spotted me. He paused briefly, then offered a tentative wave. I gave a simple nod. It was little, but far more than the cold shoulder I'd given him for months. I noticed a spark of optimism brighten his expression before he moved along. That evening, Ken joined me for supper. We'd been spending time together steadily over the past 2 months. Nothing intense, just shared meals, strolls through the green spaces, and deep talks about existence. He never pushed boundaries or sought extras. He was just present, providing solid companionship. "Your yard looks stunning," he noted while we ate outside on the deck. "It's like it burst into vitality." I feel the same, I said with a grin, as if I'd awakened to life after years in a daze. He reached for my hand over the table. I'm thrilled to have met this version of you, Eleanor, the resilient one who thrives on her own terms. Once Ken had gone, I settled into the den with Luna curled up on me, reflecting on all the shifts. This home that Candace once scorned had become a cozy haven. The walls I'd freshened with my own paint glowed softly from the new fixtures. The pieces she'd dismissed as junk were now spotless and organized, rich with personality and history. Each space whispered tales of my transformation. Devon's regular monthly packet showed up on schedule, but this one held more than cash. There was a picture. It showed him and Candace in what seemed a public green area, both beaming truly in modest, neat outfits. Tucked behind it was a message. We've joined local cooking sessions. Candace is picking up how to whip up mac and cheese. It doesn't match yours, but she's giving it her all. I'm working on it too, Mom. Daily. I tucked the image with the rest of the correspondence. The compartment overflowed now with 8 months' worth of packets, quiet regrets, and steady attempts. Perhaps it was finally time to recognize that persistence. In May, Ruth set up a get-together for the dance circle, right here at my place. It marked the first occasion I'd hosted a party since Devon's departure. The ladies showed up bearing dishes, giggles, and tunes. My den brimmed with energy and delight. We swayed to the rhythm, savored the spread, and swapped tales. Mrs. Jenkins shared vintage shots from the block, and we lost track of time in nostalgia. Here's to Eleanor, Ruth toasted, lifting her drink. A year back, she was shattered. Now she's glowing with opportunities for fresh starts. 2 fresh starts, the group echoed. Later that night, with the guests departed, I lingered in the yard beneath the night sky. Luna dozed on my knees. A gentle wind brought the fragrance of petals. Serenity enveloped everything. Then came the click of the latch. Devon approached solo, sans Candace. He neared the barrier and halted. Pardon the late hour, Mom. I noticed the glow from inside. Mind if we chat briefly? I studied him steadily. Then, after 8 long months, I unlatched the gate. Step inside, but only briefly. He proceeded gingerly, as though I might reconsider. He perched on the outdoor seat, maintaining a proper gap. Luna eyed him inquisitively. Who's that? He inquired, gesturing toward the feline. Luna's her name. I took her in some time back. She's a sweetheart. Quiet hung between us. Devon inhaled deeply. Mom, I'm not here seeking favors. I only wanted to say I spotted you with Ken. You seemed content, and that warms me. You merit joy. You merit folks who treat you right in your circle. What's your point, Devon? None, really. Just that I don't anticipate your pardon anymore. I don't assume we'll return to how things were. I yearn for things not to revert to their previous state. I simply wish that one day, spotting me on the sidewalk, you won't experience hurt, that your gaze upon me brings no emotion at all, just neutrality, since even that would surpass what I truly merit. His statement caught me off guard. It held no begging, no scheming, only a straightforward embrace of the fallout. Devon, I uttered deliberately. Seeing you doesn't stir apathy in me. The ache persists. Yet I recognize your attempts. I notice the transformation in you. I'm uncertain if we could ever rebuild a connection, but I admit you're putting in the work. Tears streamed along his face. That's beyond what I anticipated. Thank you, Mom. He rose to depart, but I halted him. Devon, join us for supper next Sunday, you and Candace. I'm not guaranteeing everything will mend, but it's an initial move. A cautious optimism brightened his expression. Seriously. Absolutely. 2 p.m. sharp. Don't arrive tardy. Once he departed, I lingered in the yard, grappling with a blend of sentiments. Forgiveness wasn't fully there for them. Perhaps it never would be. Still, I was open to letting them prove the shift was genuine and lasting. The weekend rolled around. Devin and Candace arrived right on time at 2:20, carrying blooms for the yard and a restored framed picture of me from Devin's childhood days, the two of us beaming in that same outdoor space. The meal started stiffly, with strained chats and drawn-out pauses, but gradually, authentic dialogue emerged. Devin shared details of his employment, how he was piecing together his professional path anew. Candace discussed her counseling sessions, explaining how she was discovering appreciation for everyday joys. It lacked enchantment. No embraces or tearful outbursts occurred, but it marked an opening, a modest initial stride toward what might, through sustained effort and candor over time, evolve into a fresh bond. As they drove off that evening in their aging vehicle, I remained at the entrance, observing. Mrs. Jenkins drew near from her nearby plot. "Have you pardoned them?" she inquired. "Not entirely," I answered truthfully, "yet I'm offering them a chance to merit it. If they genuinely desire it, it'll demand prolonged dedication." That evening, settled in my den with Luna rumbling contentedly on my knees, I pondered my journey. I'd evolved from a shattered, shamed individual into a resilient, fulfilled one. I possessed my charming residence, my loyal companions, the prospect of romance with Ken, and now potentially the chance to mend ties with my child. The history no longer controlled me. Candace's harsh remarks, Devin's desertion, Vivian's scheming, all belonged to bygone days. I'd weathered the tempest and emerged tougher, more insightful and utterly integrated. My device buzzed. A message from Devin. "Appreciate today, Mom. It exceeded our worth. We adore you." I grinned and set it aside. No response for now. Perhaps the following day or soon after, for at this point I held the reins. I set the boundaries. I selected my own tranquility. Luna extended her claws and let out a yawn. I caressed her softly while gazing through the pane at my garden under the moonlight. Each bloom I'd set in the earth represented my renewal. Every surface I'd coated stood as an affirmation of my self-reliance. This dwelling was no longer a site of suffering. It served as my refuge, my triumph, my haven. And I, a Eleanor Thorne at age 64, was at last genuinely thriving. Not for anyone else, not from duty, but on my own terms, pursuing my joy, my serenity. The shadows of yesterday had faded, and tomorrow gleamed with endless potential. Enjoyed my tale. And from which town are you tuning in? Share in the discussion below. If the narrative resonated, consider a super thank you to help me deliver more such accounts. Grateful for your kind backing. Eager for your thoughts on the story. Check the display for 2 fresh personal journeys I suggest. Plenty more awaits on my page. Remember to hit subscribe. Until the next tale. Warmly and respectfully.